who today, with great fanfare and a big speech at Liberty University in Virginia, today Texas Senator Ted Cruz launched what I believe is his campaign for Vice President of the United States. Technically, what Ted Cruz said today is that he's running for President of the United States, but at least nobody who's handicapping the 2016 presidential race at this point seems to think there is any credible threat of that happening. Honestly, I don't bet. I am terrible at gambling. It makes me shaky. If I had to bet money on the 2016 presidential race, honestly, I think Elizabeth Warren has more of a chance of being elected president in 2016 than Ted Cruz does. And that includes the fact that he is running and she is not. Ted Cruz could not be elected president of the United States of America. Ted Cruz could be elected president of Texas. That may yet happen in our lifetimes, but there's no, I think, reason to believe that Ted Cruz could win a national general election race. Him getting into that race, though, today is potentially really important for the future of the Republican Party and the future of Ted Cruz. Because if the Republican Party does pick a more establishment centrist candidate, hi, Jeb Bush, and it turns out that that candidate needs a firebrand, super right-wing, excite the base Tea Party running mate, Ted Cruz may fit that bill, right? His best hope is that he positions himself well as a vice presidential pick for a more moderate Republican nominee. That does not seem out of the realm of possibility. You only need to persuade one person, right? When it comes to picking a vice presidential nominee. Stranger things have happened, Sarah Palin. Even if Ted Cruz does not get picked for vice president, though, the fact that he is in the race and he's going to be at all the events, he's going to be at all the debates, that will likely have the effect of pushing all the other Republican candidates for president and therefore Republican politics as a whole toward something that's a little closer to his image, further to the right. Ted Cruz is a good debater. His political strategy at the national level has been to stake out a position that is more conservative, more uncompromising, more doctrinaire to the point of being impractical, and then deride any other Republicans who don't go along with him. At CPAC this year, all the other Republican candidates gave speeches about how terrible President Obama is and how terrible Hillary Clinton is and how terrible all the Democrats are. Ted Cruz gave a speech at CPAC about how terrible all the Republicans are. So he's in now. He made the announcement today in a long speech that he delivered without notes and without using a teleprompter. The venue was Liberty University, which is the very, very, very conservative school in Virginia that was founded by the late televangelist Jerry Falwell. Kids at the Jerry Falwell University were actually required by the school today to go to this Ted Cruz event. Any kid who did not show up at this event today would face a fine of $10 that they would have to pay to the school if they did not attend today's speech. And that did ensure a very full room for Senator Cruz today, but it also led to some funny visuals like these Liberty University kids who clearly did not want to be fined $10, but who also didn't want anybody to think that their presence at the Ted Cruz event indicated their support for Ted Cruz running for president. Their T-shirts say, "Stand with Rand." This whole announcement was sort of a mix of very well planned and very poorly planned. I mean, it's nice to have a really big room filled with thousands of people. It's not so nice when you can tell that some of those people have been conscripted to be there against their will. It was nice for his campaign that Senator Cruz had a text message number that he had ready and he referenced in his speech where you could right then and there take out your cell phone and text to that number and sign up to support his campaign. That was nice. We well prepared in that front. It was not so nice that anybody who wanted to check out tedcruz.com or tedcruzforpresident.com or any other reasonable thing you might look for on the web about him running for president were instead greeted with these websites. Look, if you go, so if you go to tedcruz.com, it's just a splash page that says, "Support President Obama! Immigration reform now." That is tedcruz.com. Tedcruzforpresident.com right now is for sale. Tedcruzforamerica.com, if you type that in, it redirects you immediately to, oh, look, healthcare.gov, where you can sign up for Obamacare. Tedcruz2016.com. Maybe this one is just me messing something up or I've got a weird browser, but this is what it brings up for me on my browser. It's just a slideshow of random stock photos of inexplicable scenery with no words and nowhere to click. Tedcruz2016.com. So he is the guy who's first in. And it's this weird mix of well-prepared and well-choreographed on the one hand, and this is tedcruz.com? Seriously? It's kind of a mix of like really well-prepared and also... We're also now learning some interesting details about the timing and some interesting questions about why now, specifically why now. As recently as Saturday afternoon, Liberty University was not admitting that Ted Cruz was going to be speaking there this morning, let alone announcing this morning that he was running for president. They had Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe on their schedule as the speaker for this event that the kids have to pay $10 if they don't go to. Folks at the university say they only got a call from Ted Cruz's people last week asking if he could come make this presidential announcement at the university today. So however long they may have been planning it for, the Liberty University part of it, they had not been planning that for all that long at all. Reporter Todd Gilman at the Dallas Morning News also had a really interesting mini scoop about the timing and the planning behind what happened today. While everybody else was just marveling that Ted Cruz had jumped right in and said, "I'm running," well, everybody was marveling that he decided to skip the dumb exploratory phase that everybody goes through and instead just jump right in. Todd Gilman at the Dallas Morning News reported today that actually quietly, almost secretly, last week, Ted Cruz did form an official exploratory committee for president. He just didn't tell anyone that he was doing. He did not make an announcement about it. He gave it a title that nobody would associate with Ted Cruz running for president at all. So for whatever reason, he apparently felt the need to set up an exploratory fund last week in order to do some of the housekeeping and organizational work that you need to do in order to set up a run for president, maybe. He did set something up quietly, very quietly last week. He just kept it all completely out of the news. So today would feel like, oh my God, Beyonce's record just showed up on iTunes. We didn't even know she was working on one. It's kind of a genius move, right? It's kind of a genius move. If you've been prepping all this time, everybody else is prepping in public. You're prepping quietly and secretly behind the scenes. But now we know he really was prepping behind the scenes. Kind of a genius move, and we would not have known about it had Todd Gilman not reported it today in Dallas. Joining us now is Todd Gilman, D.C. Bureau Chief for the Dallas Morning News. He was in Lynchburg today for Senator Cruz's announcement, and he's followed Senator Cruz's political career for years. Mr. Gilman, thank you very much for being here.
It's a pleasure, Rachel.
I have to ask you about this exploratory committee. Before I saw you report on this, I had not realized that he might have had to do stuff behind the scenes before making the big splashy announcement today. As far as you can tell, did he keep that quiet so that today would land with a bigger splash?
Oh, I think that's right. And, I don't think it's some major conspiracy. He clearly was going for the element of surprise and the dramatic effect of going straight to a formal campaign. I think the technicality of filing an exploratory committee was just something that they did, as I understand it from speaking with one of his senior strategists today. And I got to confess, I wasn't the only reporter that this strategist told this to. They just needed to do it so they could sign some contracts in the very brief window between last week and this.
We are seeing sort of a mix of granular detail about, in some ways, seeming very prepared, seeming very on the ball, and in some ways, dropping the ball entirely. The website thing is kind of a nightmare. It'd be one thing if it was just tedcruz.com and somebody just snaked you for it a long time ago. But the fact that it's tedcruz.com, tedcruzforpresident.com, tedcruz2016.com, they don't really seem to have done anything protective in that regard.
20 years ago, we used to ask these candidates stupid questions like boxers or briefs, and I guess now we need to ask them, are they a .com or a .org kind of a guy? And Ted Cruz is a .org kind of a guy. It is kind of bad planning, I guess, that they didn't squat on the various names that might have been associated with Senator Cruz, as somebody out there in cyberspace obviously did to preempt him and kind of, screw him up, I guess.
Well, between that, though, and Liberty University finding out about this, what he wanted to do very late, and if it was last week with forming the mini exploratory committee in order to do those housekeeping. Do you have any sense about the decision and the timing and why Senator Cruz might have seemingly rushed to get out there today? Why today? Why now? He obviously wanted to be first, but why has this happened in the way that it has?
Right. I don't think it was rushed. And Jerry Falwell Jr., the current president and son of the founder of Liberty University, explained to his student body that he got a call from a Cruz aide about 10 days ago asking for this forum. It happened to be the time slot that the governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, had already occupied. McAuliffe didn't want to be have his message, whatever it is that he plans to deliver at Liberty, stepped on by this, and he stepped aside to give it up for Cruz. I think that Cruz decided to do it now as a strategy. He is lagging in the polls. He's down at about 4 or 5% in national polls, probably doing a little bit better in places like Iowa and South Carolina, where the evangelical vote is more important within the Republican votes, the electorate. But strategically, what he gets to do now is leapfrog in front of everybody else. Can you imagine how much attention someone now gets for forming an exploratory committee? How exciting is that going to be? We now have somebody who's actually actively running for president. So Cruz has kind of short-circuited that. He's changed the rules of the game a little bit. And the fact is there's not that much time left. People are going to have to declare for president. The first debate is 5 months away. They need to start raising money. Most of them are waiting until April 1st or later, so they don't have to worry about how much money they raise in this filing period for the FEC reports that are going to be due. Cruz is setting himself an ambitious target of raising $1 million or more in the next week before the end of this quarter, so that he shows some credibility in that regard. He is clearly going to be lagging people like Jeb Bush and some of the others in fundraising. But being first out the gate gets you more attention than being fifth out the gate. Yeah. And now that he's done it, and he's done it in front of 8,000 or 10,000 people, it sets a bar a little bit higher for the next few people.
That's right. Everybody's going to at least have to have a trick or some storytelling device when they do it. Todd Gilman, D.C. Bureau Chief of the Dallas Morning News. Really helpful to have you here, Todd. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
I will say one piece of the sort of the reaction to Ted Cruz declaring has been that he's going to have a real problem. He's not potentially a viable candidate because other senators hate him so much, because he's famously the most hated member of the United States Congress. When you poll other members of Congress about how they feel about each other, I got to say, I have faith that Ted Cruz will turn that into an asset in his political column. He's going to run as the most hated man in Washington and try to turn it to his advantage. I don't see that as a downside for him. I think he could run with that. We'll see. Lots more ahead. Stay with us.